Borderlands 4 doesn't just reward you for finding the strongest setup, sometimes it's about creativity, synergy, or just building something that feels completely different from the norm. Every week, players are coming up with builds that not only push the limits of power, but also stand out as being clever, fun, or just plain unexpected. What's up guys, my name is Fervor, welcome back to Fervor Gaming, and in this video, we're diving into the top 5 builds of the week. I'll walk you through each one in detail, explain what makes them shine, and show you why they're worth trying out, whether you're chasing endgame efficiency or just looking for something new to spice up your Vault Hunter experience in Borderlands 4. With that said, let's dive on in. First up on the list is the Harlowe Halo Companion build, and more specifically Shadley's take on it. At its core, this setup revolves around Harlowe's capstone skill, Group Study. Normally she tosses out a flux generator, but with this build it's transformed into a Halo Companion, a little sidekick that zips over to each member of your party and grants them a huge set of buffs. We're talking increased gun damage, fast fire rate, quicker reloads, and the kicker is, whenever you trigger Harlowe's action skill, you can overload the Halo to ramp up these buffs even higher. And here's where it gets wild. From what we can tell, these effects can stack infinitely. That means you're basically building up a snowball of raw firepower that just doesn't stop, letting your entire squad shoot like absolute psychos. The downside, of course, is that it puts a heavier strain on your action skill bar, draining it much faster than normal, but clever players have already found the workaround. Leaning on Harlowe's cold-based synergies, you can freeze the clock on that timer or even refill chunks of that bar outright. The result is a loop where you're constantly refreshing uptime and pushing those buffs higher and higher. In practice, it means you're always in motion, always firing, always locked into the chaos of combat. Pair this with a rapid-fire SMG that has a deep magazine, and you'll literally be spraying thousands of rounds per minute, absolutely shredding everything on the screen. When this build was first surfaced, it was mainly considered a mobbing powerhouse, but Shadley's recent update has pushed it into bossing territory too. While I haven't personally tested that side of it just yet, everything I've seen make this look like one of the most fun and high energy builds you can run on Harlowe right now. Next up, we have Melee Amon, and I know this one has been a long time coming. The first week after launch was pretty rough for anyone trying to piece together a functional melee setup, but thanks to creators like Odinata and Ryo paving the way, the possibilities for Amon melee potential has opened up in a big way. The core idea here revolves around the Groundbreaker specialization, which stores non-melee damage and unleash it later for some truly devastating hits. Pair that with Amon's Berserk passive and you get a loop that keeps stacking damage higher and higher. What makes it especially interesting is that portions of this ramp up is actually cold damage, technically not melee, and it feeds into Groundbreaker and can be cycled over and over for absurd results. What's great is how flexible this concept has become. Moxie has a vengeance oriented take, I have a Crucible variation, and Odinata has showcased a Calamity spin, each one leaning into different strength while sticking to the same brutal melee foundation. So no matter your playstyle, there's likely a version of Melee Amon that's going to click with you. And of course, if you want the full breakdown on my Crucible version, I've got a dedicated guide on the channel that goes deep into how to put it all together. Check it out. Next up is Grebazerker Rafa, and more specifically Jolt's new Carpet Bomber version of the build. Let me be clear right up front, this isn't the strongest build on the list, but it's easily one of the coolest builds I've seen so far in Borderlands 4, hands down. The whole idea here takes advantage of Rafa's innate synergy with grenades, amplified by the feisty Grebazerker class mod. This mod opens the door for some ridiculous options, letting you chain extra grenade throws or even launch Theodore weapons as part of the mix. And that's where things get wild. You've got guns like Chuck, which skip bullets entirely and just hurl itself at enemies, or Ruby Grass, which split out into 4 homing copies of the pistol. Add in the rest of Theodore's arsenal and suddenly you're an explosive psycho covering the screen in chaos. It's one of those builds that just scream Borderlands, the sheer variety of explosions, the unpredictability, and the spectacle of blowing everything up with a toolkit of weapons that was never really meant to be used this way. It feels totally unique compared to almost anything else in the game, and while it may not top the DPS chart, it's no slouch either. It handles mobs with ease and it can absolutely hang in boss fight with the right setup. If you're after something flashy, chaotic, and completely different from the norm, this is the build I highly recommend. Of course, I have linked to Jolt's video down in the description if you want to see the Carpet Bomber in action. Next, we have Vex with a Spectre and status build, specifically AbbyHour's hybrid setup that focuses on maximizing summons while applying insane status effects. One of the most exciting things about this build is that it doesn't rely on crit knife, making it far more accessible to players who want to experiment with Vex without chasing specific gear. The core concept is simple but highly effective. You deploy your Specters and they take a copy of your weapon you have equipped, instantly adding another layer of damage output to any encounter. AbbyHour's setup compares this with weapons like the Wombo combo, the Brewery SMG, and the Hot Slugger, letting you apply blades and other status effects constantly while your Specters shred enemies from a distance. This combination keeps you engaged in combat without forcing you to focus purely on crit mechanics or melee reliance. What makes this build stand out is the way it blends active play with passive damage. You're not just standing back letting your summons do all the work, you're actively choosing weapons and synergies with your Specters, proccing statuses and creating a relentless stream of damage. Whether you're clearing mobs or contributing to boss fights, this hybrid approach gives you flexibility and efficiency while still feeling uniquely Vex. If you're looking for a Vex build that's different from the usual crit focus setup and want something that can handle multiple types of content without requiring highly specific gear, AbbyHour Specter status build is definitely one to check out. When I finally get a chance to roll Vex myself, this is absolutely one of the builds I'm going to be trying out first. Finally, for my top pick of the week, I'm highlighting a build that isn't necessarily the strongest, but it is one that has been inspiring me the most recently. We're talking about Byrdman's Beam Team Rafa build. What makes this build so interesting is that while Rafa's red tree is extremely popular, the Beam Team capstone is almost always overlooked. This capstone essentially lets you fire 2 continuous beams dealing corrosive and shock damage, and with the right synergy you can even add a third element, incendiary, to make this build truly shine. The brilliance of this setup lies in how it completely changes the way you play Rafa. You're constantly locked onto enemies from across the map, applying multiple elements at once and creating a visually stunning stream of damage that both are effective and really just satisfying to watch. Byrdman's version of the build has already been taken to Ultimate Vault Hunter rank 3, showing that it can perform exceptionally well even in the late game. What I personally love about this build is how it combines fun with practicality. You're engaging enemies in a way that feels fresh, taking advantage of Rafa's overlooked potential and creating a playstyle that is unique compared to the usual grenade or crit focus setup. If you're looking for something that's visually impressive, mechanically satisfying, and downright fun to run, this Beam Team build is absolutely worth checking out. And there you have it, the top 5 builds of the week in Borderlands 4 that are standing out for creativity, synergy, and sheer fun. Whether you're looking to dominate mobs, take on bosses, or just experiment with something completely different, these builds show just how inventive players are getting with their setups. Hopefully this gives you some inspiration for your own Vault Hunter adventures and maybe even introduce you to a few builds you haven't seen before. Now keep in mind, I stream on both Twitch as well as YouTube almost every single day, so if you want to hang out, catch some live gameplay, or just simply ask me questions directly, make sure to come stop by. Make sure to drop a like as well as subscribe to the channel, because trust me, there's plenty more coming, and check out all the creators as well in this video. My name is Fervor, thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one very soon.